Good morning, everyone. My name is Christian Escoto, and currently it is 3:58 in the morning. So today we're gonna talk about observable attributes in performance assessment. So basing from the title itself, we're gonna talk about the anything that is observable in assessing the performances of the students. So let's proceed. So please base to your own copy. Please refer. It's because in each slide here in my PowerPoint presentation, it is already a single paragraph of my report. And then I'll just chunk them into bullets so that it would be easy for you to understand. Okay, so let me read first. Simple inductive inferences can be used to draw general conclusions about people based on samples of their performance. If we observe a child riding a bicycle with ease, we can reasonably conclude that the child can ride a bicycle. If we observe a student solving quadratic equations, we might conclude that the student can solve quadratic equations. This is a very basic and useful way to draw conclusions about competencies, skills, and dispositions. Okay, so as what I have understood here in the first paragraph, as we all know, inductive reasoning is the opposite of deductive reasoning. Am I right? So, inductive reasoning makes broad generalizations from specific observations. So, basically, there is data, then conclusions are drawn from the data from the example. This one here, a child being able to solve quadratic equations, or the child that can ride bicycle effortlessly. Okay? So we can safely assume that the skills being shown by the student can easily create a conclusion in our mind about the skill of the child regarding the quadratic equations. So this term inductive reasoning is also called, by the way, inductive logic. Okay, so anything that is opposite from the deductive meaning definition of it. So it is inductive generalizations. Okay, just take note, broad generalization. So how is it related to assessment, by the way? So in inductive inferences, we go from the specific to the general. So we make observations. Okay, so specific to general, inductive. And then we create a pattern. We can also create generalization and infer an explanation, okay, on based on what we observe. Okay, so that is how it is related to assessment. But I just wanted to add something about this, okay? So since we are talking about the observable attributes from the word itself, observable, okay? So it means that anything that is able to be noticed or perceived. In this case here, not everything that is observable will be always accurate, okay, at any means. So example, um, basing from what we have read, okay, this one here, the first paragraph, we talk about the observable attributes as a very basic and useful way to draw conclusions about competencies, skills, and dispositions, as what you have seen here. Okay, so but in that case, we can only be basing on a single sample. From what I have researched about inductive reasoning, since we are still talking about inductive inferences here, so even if all of the premises are true in a statement, inductive reasoning allows for the conclusion to be false, especially in a greater whole. Okay, so that's what I have read. So, as we all know here, for example, a child knows how to solve quadratic equations. Then we can consider that quadratic equation is part of math. Am I right? But we cannot really say that the child is actually good in all aspects of math. Okay? So, again, a child knows how to solve quadratic equations. Quadratic equations is part of math. So we cannot say that the child is very good at math. Okay? So, but again, the keyword here is the word basic. So, It is just a basic way of drawing conclusions based on what we have observed. Okay, so I guess let's proceed. Okay, this one. Observable attributes. So, observable attributes can be defined in terms on how well persons can perform some kind of task, on how they respond to certain situations. So, example, how persistent they are in trying to perform an assigned task. Okay, so that was according to Cronbach and Meehl, 1955. Refer this kind of attribute as an inductive summary. Okay, so as you can see here, the word inductive has been mentioned again. Okay, so let's proceed and suggest that such variables can be defined entirely in terms of descriptive dimensions and did not involve any theory. Okay. So, as what you have read on the last sentences, or as what you have heard from what I've read, so it was highlighted that it does not involve any theory. So, why? Because it was already based on what we have observed primarily because we are using inductive method. Okay? As what I have explained earlier, we are observing the observable attributes. Okay? Remember observable attributes? In a way, we are our own generalization from what we have perceived. So that includes how well a person can perform on the first paragraph. So it is also mentioned there that we can create a question on what a person can perform, just like the bicycle. But here, okay, remember here, what a person can perform. But here in the second paragraph, we are now talking about how well a person can perform. So, from what to how. So, in this case, there should be lots of details that should be observed. Based on the bicycle ride of the child from the first paragraph, we cannot really say that the child can perform well, okay? Since it was only mentioned that a child can perform to ride bicycle properly. So there maybe there's still details that needs to be measured about the child's skill, such as the sitting position while riding a bicycle, the hand position, the cycling styles. We never know. So it's based on the different observable attributes on the skills of a child, especially in riding bike, as an example here. Okay. So I think we're done with paragraph number 2. So coming up next, we're going to read the third paragraph. So okay, so let me read. For quantitative observable attributes, the observed performances are scored using some scoring rules, which reflect the intended interpretation of the observable attribute. The value of the observable attribute can be defined in terms of the average score over some domain of possible performances. The attribute is observable in the sense that its interpretation is specified in terms of a domain of possible observations. Okay, so as we all know, the most common way of observing performances is the method of scoring, such as what being mentioned here that scoring is used for measuring quantitative observable attributes. When we hear the word quantitative, especially in research, am I right? It has something to do with numbers in terms of measuring. Okay, so let us define scoring first. So, based on what I have researched, scoring system is a procedure used for training teachers to score students' work reliably within across the schools, the processes of evaluating scores, its reliability and comparability across teachers and schools. Okay. So basically, scores are used what is intended to be measured using a kind of method so that we can know the reliability of the performance of the student. As what being mentioned here, the average scores can define the domain of possible performances, meaning it's like a control number. Okay, the average score or the basis of the performances of each students for other possible observations. Okay, so kapit na oras. So let's proceed here. Finally, we are in the last paragraph. Let me read it. Observable attributes are basically simple inductive summaries from observed performances to a larger domain of possible performances. Yet, the definition of observable attributes raises many questions about how the target domain should be defined. Thus, according to Bachman and Palmer, 2010, and Chalhoub and DeVille, 2009. Okay, so again, this is now the final part. I have explained this one in the first paragraph. So inductive summaries are simple yet brings a meaningful observation, but it does not mean that it is always accurate. Okay, that is why it was being mentioned here that the definition of the observable attributes raises many questions on how a target domain should be defined. Okay, so I think the domains being specified here are the learning domains with such as cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. Okay, so I would love to discuss the three of them, but I guess we are already running out of time. We are only given 5 to 10 minutes of screen time. So I guess that's the end of my report. So thank you for listening and goodbye. Okay, so good morning once again.